Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Ryedale series, 115 parishes covering a huge area of North Yorkshire between York and Scarborough. It's a beautiful area, so let's have a look at it. Welcome back to Ryedale again, people. Now, this time we're in a village which is a bit bigger than Kirkby Grindleith, which we saw last time. And this one is split into three bits. There are three villages, two of which have virtually the same name and one which has something completely different. Our main walk is around West Lutton in the parish of Luttons. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Luttons, Luda's farms. Back into Ryedale, and this week we come to Luttons. This is a bit of a weird one when it comes to its naming. Luttons is the official name of the parish, but it can sometimes be referred to as Luttons Ambo. To explain that, we have to consider the villages within it. Luttons contains three settlements: West Lutton, East Lutton and Helperthorpe. The two Luttons, when combined, are known as Luttons Ambo. Ambo literally means together. Helperthorpe is a bit of a straggler therefore, but it's well worth a look itself. The largest of the three villages is West Lutton, around which today's main walk will be. West Lutton is in the Great Wold Valley and about 3 miles north of Sledmere. With its picturesque countryside, quaint cottages and friendly locals, West Lutton is a Yorkshire marvel. The village is surrounded by rolling hills, lush green fields and tranquil streams, making it an ideal spot for hiking, cycling and other outdoor activities. In addition to its natural beauty, West Lutton also boasts a rich history and culture. The 12th century St Mary's Church features some stunning stained glass windows and a beautiful bell tower, as well as a carving by the Derbyshire sculptor James Redfern. There's also a pub here too, but it's currently closed. Oh, and there's an unusual water pump as well. Let's go. Welcome to Luttons, everybody. More specifically, this is West Lutton, one of two villages in the parish which share the Lutton name. Once again, all three of the villages in this one stand on the gypsy race, which we should all be familiar with by now. It's a little wider than it was last week because now we're further downstream. Wherever there was water, settlement would follow, and so would industry. West Lutton used to have a wheelwright's and a forge, both of which are now houses and can be seen in this shot here. Beautiful cottages. Let's head towards the church next. This is dedicated to St Mary. It's a Victorian church dating from the 1870s, standing on the site of an original Saxon chapel. The modern church has a spire, an aisled nave, a chancel lit by a large rose window, a south porch and a north vestry. It's a Grade II listed building. One of its most interesting features is a sculpture over the porch. Named Madonna and Child, it was carved by James Redfern, a native Derbyshire man, in 1875. His larger works were principally designed for Gothic church decoration. Outside the church was a board advertising a scarecrow festival, upcoming in July. Next up is the Three Tons pub. It's been open and closed a lot in recent years. In 2015, after standing empty for 2 years, it was taken over by a couple who used to own a motorcycle shop in Hull, which they turned into a pub. It's currently closed, but hopefully this will be up and running again soon. In front of the pub is a small green, and oh look, what's that I spy? Would that be an information board? Of course it is. We are in the Great Wold Valley after all. It's got a parish notice board, this one, so let's get Luttons off that Ryedale list. 10 down, 105 to go. No sweat. Next is an outstanding yet strange piece of ironwork, a village pump. How this contraption worked is a mystery. The large drum has a square section socket running through it, which used to take a handle on either side. Inside there's an operating rod, but there's no obvious means of connecting anything to it. Now to a former Methodist chapel. This was Wesleyan, but the village also once supported a primitive chapel too. It was located further around the bend towards East Lutton. It's now been demolished. Chapel Cottage, on the next bend, sits behind where it once stood. Chapel, the village starts to thin out a little bit. There's not much in the way of property, but we are still going to follow this road because it's the easiest way to get up towards the school. We need to take a left turn in a few moments time and head up to the school, and it will come out on Back Lane, which will form a nice little loop around the rest of the village, and then everything that's left in West Lutton is between Back Lane and where we started this walk about 10 minutes ago. So it's not a very big place, but certainly bigger than Kirby Grindelithe, isn't it? Let's continue. Almost directly opposite the chapel is a solid brick wall, behind which once stood a farm building or a barn, also now demolished. For the next few minutes, civilization disappears and fields come into play. Whilst this might not have a lot to talk about, what it does really well is show off how lovely the Great Wold Valley can be if you venture out onto the country lanes. You're just as likely to see tractors on these as you are any other kind of vehicle. West Lutton is a hedgehog-friendly village, by the way, so do look out for them if you're here. They often cross the road in some ill-advised spots. Now we're at the school after walking up a shallow hill. This is Lutton's Community Primary, which serves both Lutton villages, Helperthorpe, Kirby Grindelithe, and a few other villages we've yet to cover. The school is a neat structure of brick, originally erected in 1864 to accommodate 60 children at the time. It's on the very end of Back Lane, and this is our ticket back to the start. It's all residential up here and has some of the more modern properties to boot. There's only one cul-de-sac off it, Hillside Way, the top of which offers some brilliant views into the surrounding countryside. There's no wonder that a lot of people come to this place for a quiet getaway. You can stay in the village at Clara's Cottage, one of the 5 listed buildings West Lutton can boast. There are 5 more in Helperthorpe and 1 in East Lutton too. At this point I was kind of running out of things to talk about. West Lutton is more about the scenery and the tranquility of the area than it is about any sort of history. Maybe instead we should just enjoy these last few steps before we reconvene with the car. Okay, when we reach that bend up there, we are all the way around West Lutton. But of course, remember, this isn't the parish of West Lutton, it's the parish of Luttons, because there's more than one. There's an East Lutton as well. So let's hop in the car and have a drive through that next. West Lutton's little brother is East Lutton, and this is a lot different in terms of size and shape. East Lutton is simply one long street which connects West Lutton to Helperthorpe. It's about half a mile away from West Lutton at its closest point. This is the smallest of the villages in Luttons Parish, with just a handful of properties. Back in 1892, East Lutton had even less than it does now, literally just 3 farmhouses and a few cottages. Even though the two Luttons are virtually connected to each other, land ownership just over a century ago was different. West Lutton was owned primarily by Thomas Ness, who was the lord of the manor. East Lutton was predominantly owned by Lord Lounsborough. There were some other smallholders too, dotted around. With not a great deal to see in this one, I drove straight on through. Continuing through the Great Wold Valley and still alongside the gypsy race, the next village over to the east is Helperthorpe. This is a peaceful village of about 40 houses and 6 farms. Unlike East Lutton, this one has one landmark that's worth leaving the car for. We'll get to that shortly. Helperthorpe is one of England's thankful villages, meaning it suffered no fatalities during World War I. It's notable for its long green which runs along the main road and has a number of large chestnut and beech trees planted in 1911 to commemorate the coronation of King George V. Village life here is much quieter now than it was in the 19th and early 20th centuries. There used to be a pub, but it closed in around 1940. The Methodist chapel, last used in 1968, was demolished in 1997, and in 2000 the village lost its resident vicar, but it still has a church. To get to that I had to pass its guardians, 2 cows sat on the small path that leads to it from the main road. Dedicated to St Peter, this began as a chapel in the parish of Weaverthorpe. In 1871 the medieval chapel was rebuilt by G.E. Street for Sir Tatton Sykes. In much the same way as in other churches that he worked on, he raised the chancel here, making it 8 steps higher than the nave. The church has an oak-panelled roof which is richly painted in red, blue and gold that was restored in 1998. The churchyard features a striking cross brought here from Kirkburn in the East Riding, and there's also this richly carved 19th century monument, although I've no idea what it's actually for. It's nice though. With that, I made my way back past the Bovines, who seemed happy enough to let me go, I think, and through Manor Farm again. It should be said that Helperthorpe has no street lighting, by the way. The residents voted against it in 1959, so it's not uncommon to see torchlights here at night. And that will do for Luttons. That's been a really interesting place all ends up, but I can tell you I was pleased to be away from those cows. Even though they never bothered me, you just never know passing them that close if they'll behave nicely. Join me in 7 days' time when we go in search of some huge earthworks in the next village. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.